Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Oh, it's great to be back.
We're going to kind of shift gears a little bit today and head over to 1970s Birmingham, England.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Wow.
yeah, we're going to take a look at a crime novel you shared with me
Okay.
and really try to sort of unravel, I guess, the darkness that can exist in childhood.
Yeah, and I think unraveling is a really good word for it because
Yeah,
I think that's what we're doing here. We're not just trying to figure out, who committed the crime,
right.
but how these events really impact a community and the people in it, and especially the children.
Right, and speaking of the children, the author introduces us to this young girl, Ava.
Hmm.
And she has a rather unusual hobby. She creates this thing that she calls a body farm,
Yeah.
where she observes the decomposition of roadkill.
It is a strange hobby for a young girl.
It is, but she's very meticulous about it. She has this red book that she keeps all of her notes and observations and sketches in.
That's right, her red book. And it might seem morbid to some people,
Right.
but it really showcases Ava's incredible observational skills.
Mhm.
I mean, she picks up on these tiny little details,
Mhm.
things that adults just completely overlook.
Right.
For example, she spots these footprints at one of the crime scenes
Okay.
that are irregular, and then later on, she's the only one who realizes that there's no way a cat could have fallen from a balcony the way the police initially suspect.
So she really sees the world differently than everyone else.
She does.
It's almost like this obsession with death has made her hyper aware of like the living.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's like by studying death so closely, she develops this really deep understanding of life and the signs that something's wrong.
Right. And this keen eye for detail is going to come in handy as a series of tragic deaths rock this community.
Uh-huh.
We have three young boys, Mickey Grant, Brian Shelton, and Gary.
Yes.
They are all found dead, and each boy is discovered with a dead canine nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, this sends shockwaves through the community.
It does, and the police are really struggling to find a connection between these deaths.
Right.
And it just amplifies the fear and the mystery surrounding the case.
And in the midst of all this chaos, Ava decides she's going to take matters into her own hands.
Oh, really?
She starts secretly contacting the police using the pseudonym Miss Misty
Oh, wow.
and offers tips about the case.
That's a smart strategy.
Right, because she kind of understands that as a child, people might not take her seriously, but as this mysterious Miss Misty,
Right.
she can make her voice heard.
Precisely. And her insights are sharp,
Yes.
She provides crucial information about potential layers. She even suggests a connection to something called clinical lycanthropy.
Now, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with that term.
Right.
So clinical lycanthropy is this rare psychiatric syndrome where
Yes.
individuals believe that they can transform into an animal.
Yeah, often a wolf.
Hoffman Wolf, right. And she even highlights the significance of dog skins or suits,
Okay.
hinting at this possible werewolf figure involved in the killings.
Which really adds this whole other psychological layer to the case,
So
right?
that's-
Because it blurs the lines between what's real and what's delusion.
Exactly.
It makes you question the killer's state of mind.
Right. And as she continues to feed the police information,
Mm-hmm.
she becomes fixated on this one individual, Neville Coleman.
Yeah, Neville Coleman,
Yeah.
a former dog breeder who's suffering from dementia and is now living in a mental hospital.
Right.
His connection to the case runs through this place called Banlock Farm,
Okay.
which was once a dog breeding facility, and also the site of Mickey Grant's murder.
And what's even more intriguing is that the police discover this abandoned teddy bear in Coleman's hospital room.
Interesting.
It's like the author is leaving us these clues, these connections to dogs and childhood
Yeah.
to draw our attention to Coleman.
So it makes you wonder, is Coleman hiding something maybe consciously or unconsciously?
Right.
Is there something more to his dementia?
Right. We're left wondering what secrets he might hold.
Yeah, and we're on the edge of our seats to find out.
Right. And so we have this series of brutal murders, a
Mhm.
community that's paralyzed by fear. And this young girl with a unique perspective who's trying to help solve this from the shadows.
It really makes you think about, the nature of evil
Yes.
and the potential for darkness that I think exists in us all.
It really makes you question, is evil something that we're born with, or is it something that's shaped by our experiences?
That's a great question.
And we have so much more to uncover, so stay tuned as we delve deeper into the story and try to piece together the puzzle of who is behind these horrific acts.
I can't wait.
All right, we'll be back in a flash.
Sounds good. So, Ava had that theory about the killer maybe believing they were a werewolf.
Right, clinical lycanthropy.
Yeah, and it really threw the police off.
It did.
But it's fascinating how Ava doesn't just, throw out these random theories. She actually backs it up
Right.
with historical examples of men who genuinely believed that they were werewolves
Wow.
and who targeted children. So it sends the police on this wild goose chase through these mental hospitals,
Oh, wow.
interviewing doctors and trying to find someone who fits this profile.
Yeah. And do they find someone?
They find a patient, a former dog breeder named Samuel,
Oh, wow.
who escaped from a hospital in Wales. And get this,
What?
he was last seen wearing a dogskin suit.
Oh, my gosh. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Talk about a creepy coincidence.
It really makes you wonder if there's something to this whole werewolf idea.
Yeah, it does.
Of course, it's all a clever trick by the author.
Right.
It's a red herring,
Yeah. Right.
to mislead the police and us as readers.
Right.
And it plays on our fascination with the macabre and the supernatural.
Yeah.
And makes us question what's actually possible.
So while the police are busy chasing werewolves,
Yeah.
Ava is doing some investigating of her own,
Uh-huh.
and she becomes fixated on Neville Coleman.
Right, the former dog breeder we talked about.
Yes.
It's interesting how Ava's interest in him goes beyond just finding the killer.
Right.
She seems to see him as a kindred spirit in a way.
Okay.
Someone who understands the animal world the way that other people don't.
And she even sneaks into the hospital to visit him and brings her dog Fizz along to kind of connect with him.
Yeah, and Coleman, despite his dementia, he really seems to respond to her,
He does.
especially when she mentions his deceased daughter to Siphon.
It's such a poignant detail because it reminds us that even in the midst of this murder investigation, there are these human stories of loss and grief.
Absolutely. And it's those human elements that I think really elevate this book beyond, a typical whodunit.
Right.
It becomes about people and their connections and their secrets.
Right. And speaking of secrets, what about those sugar mice
Oh, yes, the sugar mice.
that were found with each victim?
Right, those seemingly insignificant details that end up being actually pretty important.
Right.
As we later find out, those sugar mice were only sold at one shop in the area,
Oh, really?
Hardy's Gifts,
Okay.
which leads the police to Mac Hardy, a man with a known grudge against Mickey Grant.
So it seems like they have their guy.
It does seem that way at first.
Right.
But then Hardy presents an alibi for the
Yeah.
night of Mickey's murder. And when questioned about the sugar mice found with the other victims,
Right.
Brian and Gary, he claims they could have been gifts from a friend.
So are the sugar mice just a dead end?
Not quite.
Okay.
It's really clever how the author does this.
Okay.
The sugar mice clue does eventually lead to the killer,
Okay.
but not in a direct way.
Okay.
So it's through this series of seemingly unrelated events that the truth finally comes to light.
Okay. Give me those events.
All right, so we have this runaway boy, Keith Trigger McGaw,
Okay.
a troubled kid with a history of running away. He gets hit by a car and falls into a coma.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and at first glance, this seems like a horrible accident,
Right.
totally unrelated to the murders. But then something pretty incredible happens.
What happens?
Trigger wakes up,
Oh, wow.
and he says that he was actually attacked and held captive by the wolf.
What?
Yeah, and even more shocking, he managed to escape
Wow.
and gives the police crucial information about the lair and its location.
And where's the lair? It's
Okay.
on Nathaniel Marlowe's property.
You got it.
Wow. Okay.
So the killer has been hiding in plain sight all along.
Okay, so let me get this straight.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Coleman's grandson, this seemingly harmless young man,
Yeah.
is the wolf terrorizing the community?
Yes, and now everything starts to click into place.
Okay.
We learn that Nathaniel has been building and modifying these wolf suits for years,
Oh, wow.
indulging his fantasies in this secret underground bunker.
It's chilling to think about that.
It is.
That he was actually modifying them. That just shows the level of premeditation and his conscious effort to become the wolf.
Exactly, and I think it reminds us that the monsters we fear aren't always, supernatural creatures or boogeymen.
Right.
But they can be real people driven by darkness that we might not ever understand.
So the police raid the scrapyard owned by Nathaniel's father.
Yeah.
Where they find this horrifying lair.
Right. They find bloodstains and scratch marks all over the wall. Just a testament to the suffering of the victims.
Right.
They even find chunks of dried meat later identified as Brian's fingers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, gruesome and heartbreaking.
So they find the wolf suits confirming his identity.
They do.
And this is the beginning of the end for Nathaniel and his
Yeah.
reign of terror.
Right.
But before we jump into that final confrontation,
Mhm.
Remember how Ava was visiting Neville Coleman?
Yes.
Well, it turns out Nathaniel had also been visiting his grandfather,
Oh, really?
secretly at night.
Wow.
So not only did Coleman lose his daughter,
Right.
he also lost his grandson to this darkness.
And it makes you think, did Coleman know or suspect what Nathaniel was doing?
Right.
Did he turn a blind eye to his grandson's behavior, or was he really just oblivious,
Yeah.
lost in the fog of his dementia?
It's a haunting question.
It is.
It really speaks to the complexities of family relationships and how far we'll go to protect the ones we love.
Yeah, even when they're capable of terrible things.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, the secrets that we keep and how
Yeah.
heavy they can be.
Mhm.
And the fact that Nathaniel was also visiting his grandfather in secret. Right.
Adds this whole other layer.
It does, and it's especially tragic when you think about Nathaniel's childhood.
Right.
The book reveals that he experienced a lot of trauma early on.
Oh, that's right.
He was separated from his grandfather, and then he had that severe head injury.
Right, and it makes you wonder if those early experiences, played a role in shaping his actions later on.
Yeah.
I mean, could the trauma he experienced as a child contribute to this darkness that consumed him?
It's a really complex question, and I don't think the book offers any easy answers.
Right.
But it does explore that nature versus nurture debate.
Right.
How much of who we are is already decided and how much is influenced by our environment and our experiences.
Right, and especially those that we have in childhood.
Exactly. And it's a question that's been around for centuries.
It has.
And this book really tackles it head on.
It does.
And it makes you think about the lasting impact of childhood trauma
Yeah.
and how it can show up in these unexpected and really horrifying ways. And even though Nathaniel committed these monstrous acts,
Right.
there are these moments where you see glimpses of good in him.
Yeah, like how he saved Ava from those bullies at school, or how he cared for Keith Trigger McGaw even after attacking him.
It's almost like he's battling these two sides of himself.
Right.
The wolf and this boy who just wants to be loved.
Exactly, and it's that internal struggle that I think leads to his downfall.
Right.
He chooses to embrace the darkness.
And so this leads to this final confrontation that's both tragic and inevitable.
It is.
So paint us a picture. What's happening as the police close in on his lair?
Okay, so it's a snowy night. The police have surrounded the lair,
Okay.
and they know time is running out. They've learned from Trigger that Nathaniel's planning to abduct another child.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a little boy named Adam.
So the stakes are incredibly high.
They're not just for the police, but for Ava and her friend John, who get caught in the middle of it all.
Oh, gosh, what happens?
So John, he's been searching for the bunker on his own. He stumbles upon Nathaniel in the garden,
Okay.
and Nathaniel's in the full wolf suit,
Oh, my gosh.
and he has Adam with him.
So what does John do?
Well, John, unarmed and completely outmatched, he confronts Nathaniel,
Oh, wow.
tries to buy time for the police to get there.
Okay.
It's brave, but so risky.
It is.
And then Ava, who's been searching for John,
Right.
arrives just in time to see this all happen.
Oh, my gosh.
So Ava, knowing that any attempt to directly fight Nathaniel
Right.
will put the children in danger,
Uh-huh.
she decides to create a distraction.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She leads him away from the kids towards the edge of this abandoned quarry.
Oh, wow.
So it's this tense standoff,
It is.
a battle of wills between this young girl and this man consumed by this monstrous persona.
And then what happens at the quarry?
Well, in a final act of defiance, Nathaniel,
Okay.
realizing he's trapped, he jumps into the quarry,
Oh, wow.
choosing death over capture.
It's a tragic end.
It is.
But at least his reign of terror is over.
Yeah, there's a sense of relief.
Right.
But the story doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
We see the community, trying to pick up the pieces,
Yeah.
and Ava trying to understand what she's been through.
Right.
And I think there's hope in the ending.
Okay.
We see Ava, despite all the trauma, choosing to use her perspective for good.
Right.
She keeps observing the world, but now with this new appreciation for its complexity.
It's a powerful message
It is.
about resilience and finding strength in the face of adversity. And so as we close the book on this deep dive, we're left with this lingering question.
Right.
Is it possible to ever truly understand the darkness within ourselves and others?
It's a question I think we all have to think about.
We do.
And I think that's what makes this story so powerful.
Yeah.
It challenges us to really confront the truth about humanity.
It does.
And to explore our own capacity for good and evil.
Absolutely. And with that thought, we conclude our deep dive into the dark heart of childhood.
Wow.
We've explored trauma and the nature of evil, and the resilience of the human spirit.
It's been
Yeah.
a journey
It has.
filled with twists and turns and
Yeah.
heartbreak and hope.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Sounds good.